Hello and welcome back to the world of the VCO Esports studio. Today we continue our journey through the world of sim racing by talking to someone that has seen so much of sim racing history but is also going to be a part of a very special event this weekend as BS competition goes up against Team PGZ. Say hello everyone to Pablo GoPro Lopez, now known as the Pulpo Lopez. Pablo, you've been in sim racing for, more than a decade at this point? You've seen it all, you've been and done it all.
Actually, almost, yeah. Not a Golden Toast GP. So this is the first time I've been in this kind of format.
Pablo, I know you from your YouTube channel. I think like a lot of people do as well. So let's talk about how that started, how you got into this world of sim racing, because for many people, I think your videos might be an introduction to sim racing for them.
Well, that was way long ago. I always liked the competition, the motorsports, and I didn't have any money to compete back in the day, 2005 or something. And I started to play just with PlayStation games, and my older brother had consoles always. But when I got a PC in 2007, I found Live for Speed, and that you could race online. So for me, that's another world and like a dream, like racing a real simulator online with another people. That was a head explode moment for me back in 2007, and I started to race with a gamepad in 2007 in that game. But in 2008, I got my first wheel and started learning again how to drive, because I thought I knew how to drive, but with a wheel was a complete different story. And it was a long run, long journey till I learned and get into iRacing in 2010 or something to win my first championship. And from then on, I was like driving and driving and started streaming and got into the world championship and whatever. Many things. I don't know.
And I think it's a journey that shows what sim racing is about, right? You say that you got into it because your mind got blown that you could race wheel to wheel with people around the world, and now you are, fully immersed in this industry and have had the opportunity to go and do some real racing as a result of it. But I think one thing that you talked about, which is so important, is this idea that you started with a controller. You didn't necessarily jump straight into a wheel, because something that we talk about a lot at top level sim racing is equipment and how important that is. You can learn a lot in terms of racecraft just from a controller.
Yeah, I was really fast back in the day with a controller, almost as fast as the top guys in that league I started. But then when I switched to the wheel, was another world. I mean, I had to learn again. I knew how to do the corners and where to brake, but just to counter steer, the most difficult thing for me was counter steer moments, because before it was like counter steer was like this, and now it was like going like this, and so it was the most difficult part to learn for me, because the lines and the apex, the braking, also the brakes, the braking inputs like trail braking was difficult for me, because at first you do mountain inputs or many mountain inputs till you learn, and then from practice and practice you just perfect the technique and look at the fastest guys. And back in the day we didn't have any sort of tool like VRS, but we just look at how the faster drivers were doing that, and that's it.
And of course, VRS is such a great tool for people to get faster. You're part of that team as well now, of course. But in terms of, you've jumped into iRacing, you talk about getting into the iRacing World Championships. you're talking about the lack of telemetry on a lot of these things. I don't think a lot of people recognize how different top level sim racing was nowadays compared to when you were part of the iRacing Grand Prix World Championship Series. Talk to us about what competitive sim racing was like back then, especially given that you are someone that would have seen some of those Live for Speed days when we had ESL running competitions all those years ago.
My biggest improvement was when I went to Radical's online team, and Jeremy Butteloop and Mike Vacuum were there, and we were practicing for the World Championship. And Andy had one engineer guy that asked us to share the telemetry. I didn't have any clue about telemetry back in 2011 or 2012, but I learned a lot in that season with Mac and Jeremy, sharing back and forth all the telemetry on practice, looking at every corner, the brake trace, the inputs and the lines, and also about setup. I learn a lot, but I don't really like to fiddle too much about setups. I just like to arrive and drive, grid and go, whatever. But yeah, back in the day, it was in a forum sharing telemetry, and you had to have the Atlas or Motec software that for me was really difficult to use because it was like a engineering software, not like something that highlights you what you are doing wrong, or it's really easy to use. But thanks to being there with Mac and Jeremy back in the day, was a good learning thing.
And for those wondering who we're talking about, that's Mac Backham, Jeremy Bootsloop, who then went on to become part of the founding team at Coanda Esports, as they're now known, of course. So there's so much history to go back to as well. But you talk about 2011. This is around that time where you're joining the Radicals online camp. You're getting this more experience with setups and whatnot. But the next year, 2012, opportunity rolls around, the GT Academy. You go and enter it, you enter the finals, and you got the chance to go and showcase your skills. What was that experience like for you back in 2012 when the virtual to reality pipeline was, I think, definitely something that so many were focused on?
I mean, that was random. I didn't have a PlayStation back in the day. PlayStation 3 it was, and I asked for a PlayStation to a friend, and I just dropped some laps, and I found that I was fast there. It was Motegi, I think, with the Nissan 370. But then I did a really good lap. I got on top of the standings, and I didn't believe I was going into the GT Academy while going already in the World Championship on iRacing. I was driving the World Championship Grand Prix Series with the F1, and then I went to the GT Academy to Barcelona. I didn't went to Silverstone because I didn't pass into the finals, but that experience for me was my first experience that amazed me about going to the real world, because it was a real competition with real people around, and simulators, and then also a 370 set in a cone track, like a zigzag track and whatever. There wasn't really a lot there, but for me it was a really nice experience, and something I regret not practice more, because I I didn't know many tracks of Gran Turismo, and while there they random put tracks for the competition, and I had to learn the tracks while the other people driving there knew all the game like 100%. Like I know iRacing now, but they know they knew back in the day that competition any track.
Even back then, practice made perfect at the end of the day. Still in the World Championship, still all bubbling up nicely, and I think that surely gave you some confidence for the next time that you got a similar sort of opportunity. A lot of people, I think, will remember when iRacing used to be partnered up with Mazda to go and send an iRacing driver to the road to 24. You were that driver in 2016. You headed out to NOLA. What was that like for you? Your second chance to now go into a real car. This time with, I'm sure, a lot more experience under your belt. 4 years later, what all had changed?
Well, that was impressive. Dream come true for me. It was one of my worst status on my life in that year, and I when I achieved that, it was going up. I mean, I was in the bottom of my life there in that moment of 2016, and I achieved that, and I was like another push to get forward. So I didn't have much experience in real track. I mean, I didn't race anything, but there I didn't do anything bad. Like I was quite fast there. I didn't know about slick tires. I never raced slick tires. We had 4 cars, and you had a set of tires. So we test every car with your sets of tires, but for 4 laps in NOLA, and it was amazing experience looking at the telemetry each session, and it was really a good thing to learn because all the drivers there were really experienced people in the motorsports world, in the club racing in the US, some winners for East Championship, West Championship, and other winners. Even there was a guy that was driving for 11 years straight in motorsports, and the guy was 16 years old. So I was there with no experience at all, and I think the Mazda representative there was looking at me like this guy will crash the car, but I didn't, and I was quite fast. So after the first day of testing, he was like, "Man, you have talent. Keep going. You don't go through. You don't get to win this event because you had a spin. But anyways, you did amazing, and I didn't put any money on you because you were really inexperienced. And I also regret not having more experience on track there to just go and kick ass there. But if it was now again, I would kick ass. Anyways,
Well, I think the important thing there is it sounds like even though you have some regrets, it came at a difficult time in your life and maybe was a bit of a turnaround because, of course, this is all building up. 2018 rolls around and you accept an opportunity to join VRS as one of, I think, 4 or 5 different people who are making full-time steps into the sim racing industry, which I'm sure must have been a quite large jump for you to go from being a semi-professional racing driver effectively in the sim racing world to now not just competing, streaming, but also having other responsibilities with VRS.
for me, yeah, that was my biggest change on life. I was like web developer for 8 years or so, and the income here in Galician favela is not that much, and for joining VRS, I quit web development or a normal job here, and I'm still there. Really proud of what I did because many people said, "Oh, how you get off your job? You are not going to success, whatever, you know." But nowadays, I am really proud of the change, and I'm really grateful about VRS and what they do and how they achieve things, and I am really proud of being part of that family. For sure, is a really hard change to do at first because you don't know what to expect for the future, but we are 5 years in, and we are still running really good. So
And you've had some really interesting opportunities in the last 5 years as well. Not just VRS coach, helping a lot of drivers to get their first steps to being more competitive in sim racing. You've helped with VRS hardware, the VRS wheel in particular, I know. And for a couple of years, you were part of the Team Fordzilla camp. Unfortunately, that no longer a partnership that is active, but seemed like you had a lot of fun working with their team, doing a lot of not necessarily just racing, but going out to WRC events and whatnot, and just being part of the Ford family.
yeah, that was another step forward that I didn't expect. It came from nowhere. Like suddenly they appeared 3 months before the lockdown in 2020, and they started the team. But I was out of Vodafone Giants after a bad experience about contracts and everything professional within sim racing. So I didn't want to come back and get into another team because it was a just created team for the beginning, and I was like, I don't have anything to learn at first. I need to look up and learn from others that are faster or whatever, but I don't want to really go at first being the reference, because I will get in this line not going up. But after 3 months, Coty insisted, and I am glad he did, because it was a really good experience. It was 3 years being part of our official Ford team, and we raced in sim racing. We could race any car, not just BMWs like VS. And you know, we had a lot of events, and those marketing events were really nice, with the Ford cars, driving the Ford Raptor, the Puma ST, the Mustang, or whatnot. I mean, a lot of cars, and also attending to the World Rally Championship as VIP with a Puma ST around Monte Carlo, and going with the Team Forcilla P1 prototype around events, letting people try the simulator that I made for that car. So it was an amazing journey. Being part of something that big for me was amazing, and I learned a lot of things about big companies there, and I am proud of being part of it. Sadly, many big companies just do change budgets for things after some years. So it was the esports team, also many design teams and wherever in Europe, that they are changing many things. So they are not spending anything in the esports team, just going with the other Pablo on Twitch, which I am proud of as well, because they keep Pablo still going live within the streams. But yeah, it was a good experience and something I didn't expect, and something to remember every time in my life.
Hey, you got to come over to Indianapolis last year as well, and were driving a Bronco, if I remember. So plenty of memories, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
you alluded to the rivalry there, BS Competition and Team PGZ. You've joined up with the other Pablo on Twitch at Team PGZ now, and we're getting ready for this weekend's Golden Toast Grand Prix, where the what are we calling it? The Grid and Go Favela Team PGZ go up against the multi-millionaire BMW owning BS Competition teams. Have I described it properly?
Yeah, perfectly. Because also in the battle of 4x4, we have Rico, which is not PGZ anymore, but now is in Grid and Go. So it's now Grid and Go Favela PGZ against Multimillion Org VS. And it will be an amazing event. I think this kind of events is what makes the community great. And the community in our Discord is amazing. Sometimes it's not that amazing. So, but yeah, I think is a really nice competition, and 3 hours of racing with 2 safety cars. It will spice things up, and we have new, many well-known people that are really freaking fast on track, and there is rivalries. It will be a really golden toast thing.
For those wondering what we're talking about, this Saturday, the 15th of July at 6 p.m. CEST, we host the Golden Toast Grand Prix. 55 GT3 cars at Spa for 3 hours. After the first hour, we throw a safety car, get rid of the slowest 15. We do the same an hour later, get rid of the slowest 20, and it sets up a 20-car shootout in the final hour for not just an actual Golden Toast trophy, but $500 for charity as well. And there's the inner story that is the BS competition versus PGZ battle that's going on. Pablo, you're not representing PGZ, which means that you get free choice of car. And we were kind of talking about what you might like to drive before we went live with this interview. But I'm kind of curious, what's your take on GT3 BOP and iRacing nowadays, especially as we come up to the iRacing Spa 24?
I don't really know about the BOP. Ask Rico for that. No, I mean, I will not drive McLaren for sure, and I will not drive BMW for sure because not supporting BS. But nah, I don't know if Fefe or Mercedes. That will be my take. I still didn't practice. I am finishing the VRS work before it. I had many things to do last week as well, and I was out of home. And tomorrow I think I will finish all the VRS work and start practicing for Saturday, because this Saturday is the Golden Toast.
Before we wrap things up, Pablo, I want to talk about something that I had the pleasure of being a very small part of, which was you partnering up with VRS, partnering up with Alex Palou, the NTT IndyCar champion, to go and do some cross-kart. You used my voice for the trailer that you put on Twitter, so thank you very much for stroking my ego. But you had a lot of fun, and not just fun, you got some success as well.
Another dream come true. I mean, Arteixo is a track in the north of Galicia, 100 kilometers north from my home, and it's the best known track in autocross in Spain, which is a dirt road competition with many cars, but there is a cross car category, which are tiny cars, single seaters with bike engines behind, sequential shifter, and no differential. Is like a kart with suspension, like a 6-gear shifter car, but with suspension. And that track made its own virtual version of the track for Assetto Corsa and made a competition. And I won that competition back in 2021. And thanks to winning that, I had an opportunity to test one of those cross cars. And I did it. And it was a blast because it's going sideways over a dirt track with engine screaming behind you, and it's really fun. I mean, it's the most fun vehicle I tried, and I did record that. And back in that time, I was teammate of Alex Palou in Team Forcilla, so I showed him the video about my experience trying the cross car, and he was blown away about, man, I want to try that. And thanks to him and VRS, months after that, we did a race and in Arteixo, and it's called, they did just a trophy to make Alex Palou come to Galicia and many other all-star drivers in the motorsports world to just drive cross cars and have fun in a weekend. And for me, it was the first taste of competition, and being just teammate of Alex Palou, which I was fan of. For me, it was something unreal. Like I was sharing car livery and suit with the winner and the champion of IndyCar, and I couldn't believe it. And next year, last year in 2022, we did it again, and I beat him. I won 2 heats, and in the semi-final I got crashed. But it was for me something I dream of for many years. Like I was dreaming about winning in real life for like more than 10 years. Never had the budget, and thanks to VRS and Alex, I had it to just drive those races, and winning even a hit was for me something I just broke in tears. Like started to drop tears after crossing the finish line, and was like the best experience of my life. And I am addicted to that, to be honest, and I I still want to try more.
I think in your 16 years of sim racing, you've been a great ambassador for what the virtual world can do in giving us opportunities in the real world. And I think one thing that surely, Pablo, stands out to you over all of those years, the people that you've met as well and the friendships that you develop, which I think is a lot of what this Golden Toast Grand Prix is about, right? It's the fact that we've got two communities, two big communities that are going to come together, and we'll see which one is quicker, I guess.
For sure, PGZ, humble PGZ. If we had the millions, I mean, they will stand no chance. But without millions, still they don't.
So that's the statement of intent laid down. Pablo, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate you giving us a bit of insight into your journey to where you are today. One of the more visible people in the world of sim racing, and what a story you have. And hopefully we get to see you a little bit more here in the world of VCO Esports in 2023.
Thank you. It was a pleasure for me. And have fun in the events, and see you on Saturday.
We'll see Pablo on Saturday for the Golden Toast Grand Prix. It's live on all VCO channels at 6 p.m. CEST, but do not forget, if you want a special behind-the-scenes look at race control and, well, maybe the lack thereof, Pablo, as well as Florian, will be working through all the incidents on Pablo's Twitch, so make sure you join him at, again, around 6 p.m. CEST. We'll be back in a couple of weeks' time once again with another guest from the world of sim racing. For now, though, for the team at VCO, for Mike Gao behind the scenes, it's Arjuna Kankipati signing off and saying so long and race on.